Mississippi Anime Fest. Hope everyone is having a great time. All right, so my name is Andrew Waldron. I am here today to talk about fiction writing. Specifically, I am talking about it from one of the most beginner's aspects. I am going to take questions off and on throughout this, so as questions come up, I will take the time to answer them. First and foremost, this is going to be a little repetitious because the first thing I was going to say that just came up in the pre-show is the most important thing anyone should take today regarding writing is making a habit of it. If you're writing and you set a schedule for yourself, your body will adjust to it, and you will be able to make more workout. It also is less stressful because I wanted this done 2 weeks ago, but the muse hasn't shown up in two weeks. What do I do? I guess I abandon all hope and aspirations. Real conversation, by the way. So, if setting yourself up to be a writer is actually like fully making a habit. Now, what schedule should you set for yourself? I have been told that authors who have traditional publishing connections try to do about 5,000 words a day. If you are an independent writer and you're planning to publish through Amazon or fanfiction or whatever, or anything that is personal or to market, I've been told that you can usually do about half of that, like 2,500 a day. But also I'm assuming the general public, and some of y'all, it's like, wow, that's really great and all, but if those who don't know, usually about 1,000 words in an hour is professional level. And so when I'm saying like you're working like 3 to 5 hours a day towards it, that is not feasible for some people who have like full-time jobs or in school. So what I'm saying is make a schedule for yourself, is figure out where you can get your writing in and where you can get it in consistently. One of the most common stories I've heard is like, well, I work an 8-hour day. I have a 1-hour lunch break. I can eat my lunch in 30 minutes, so therefore 5 days a week, 30 minutes, I am getting words on the page. I am moving this story forward. Forward progress is being made. And that is what you want to be doing, is be making forward progress and making it, consistent and as a regular schedule as you can. Sometimes life will get in the way of that. Emergencies, don't get into a car crash if you're planning to hold the schedule, those sorts of things. When it comes to getting back on that, you just got to start working back towards it. Do I have any questions about scheduling or setting yourself up to write or anything like that? Usually I take silence on the first round of questions as I am either doing so awesome, such an amazing job, or this is horrible. So hopefully I'm doing good. All right, so now you've set yourself up with a schedule. The next thing you need to the next thing that is most common thing to determine about yourself is your writing style. I was talking about Ben's writing with that young lady in the middle there, but also more generically, there's two broad categories of writing styles. That's if you start talking with people around. There is discovery writing, and then there is outline writing. Discovery writing sort of sounds a little bit self-explanatory, but to give a little bit of detail. Discovery writing is you start writing and you don't know where it's going to go. You're just writing and you're getting it out on the page and you're pushing forward. How does the story end? We'll know when we get there. Discover it. Then there is also plotting, which is on the other end of the spectrum. What that is you, before you sit down and start putting words to the page, you're making an outline. You're plotting it out so that way, as you go down and you're writing, you have an idea of where your story is going to go, already formulated in your head and also on the page in front of you. The important reason to understand where you fall is because you will save yourself a lot of stress. Discovery writers who are plotting things out tend to get bored with their stories pretty fast. And the reason is because they look at their outline, they look at the blank page, they look back at the outline and say, I already wrote the story. And then with plotting writers, they look at the blank page, they look at the blank page, the anxiety kicks in, nothing gets done because they don't know where it's going and they don't like that. It is perfectly okay to be either. If anyone tells you you have to be one or the other, they are wrong. I mean, sometimes their advice to try different ways is on point, but the point of writing is you need to be most comfortable with how you're writing. Also, really important in this is I just talked about discovering and plotting writing as two separate points. They are not. It is a spectrum. You have your discovery writers, you have your plotters, and then you have the whole spectrum of people in between who do both. It is okay to do both, because also, there's nothing wrong with doing it otherwise. Like, you could be a discovery writer and be like, this scene needs to go to this direction. So the big difference is how the intervals of an outline, because you can be like, okay, in this scene I want this, and this to happen. And then you can write towards that and leave yourself room to change it. And then plotters sometimes like, in this scene, we'll just see what happens. And they can do it like that. Personally, for myself, I am towards the middle. I am primarily a discovery writer, but I have become more of a plotter in recent years, but I still leave myself that room to discover. And then before I take questions, I do want to talk a little bit about the downsides of that. So when it comes to discovery writing, one of the biggest concerns with discovery writing is it goes off the rails, and it most commonly manifests as the story felt like it ended 100 pages ago. It's like it just kept going. The plot wrapped up, but we're here. And with plotting, it most commonly shows up in the middle, where it looks like this really awesome thing happened. Then the book gets really boring. And then this really awesome ending comes along. Because what it is they had these this really awesome way to begin something, this really awesome way to end something, and they just kind of forced it together. A primary example of discovery writing going wrong is the Song and Fire of Ice, aka Game of Thrones book series. An example of plot writing going wrong is the Game of Thrones TV series. All right then. Do we have any questions about discovery writing, plotting, writing stuff? Yes, sir.
I'd say I have a mix of discovery and plotting. I like to plot out major things that would happen. Where I struggle is getting to those plots, like you said, the intervals between. Is there like any advice for, I guess, doing more lower tension things to get to the more exciting plots?
So lower tension so struggle with connecting plot points. Is there a way to get more to the lower tension to the higher tension? So in my experience, the best glue in a plot is character motivations, which means because when something feels forced in a novel, one of the most common ways it feels forced is you're reading this and then you're like, no character would ever do this. No person would ever do this. So character motivations often play a role in how a novel feels natural to you. Flow is the official term, but feeling natural is because decisions characters make usually leads to consequences characters make. Those consequences require more decisions, but that spirals up, spirals down, depending on what kind of story you're writing. And then, the choices your characters are making tend to push the plot forward and connect those plot points. If those plot points are feeling forced, one thing that is not entirely uncommon. Now, I'm only saying this is the most common thing is because it feels like an author has stepped in and either, why yes, we should go down the alley with the skull and crossbones on it, even though no one else would. Sometimes it's through forcing character motivation. Sometimes there's also a setting force authors can do, but the reason I'm not talking about them as much is because if readers are more likely to buy into setting forces than character forces. Very few people buy into a character making a 180-degree turn on everything you've built so far. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Would a certain writing type in a certain genre better, like a discovery in plot series?
From the ultimate answer is whatever works for you, but there is a correlation with plotting working better when you're building up your own fantasy world rather than working like strictly in the rules of our world. Now, and the reason for that is because as writing in fantasy worlds continues, those fantasy worlds tend to grow. And if you haven't planned ahead for that growth, you're at risk of running into forcing yourself to retcon. And if you're in the third series of a book and realize that this thing is completely important to the series going forward, but it contradicts the first book, you either have to force fit it backwards, or you can mitigate some of the risk by setting rules to your world ahead of time. So that way, even if you're discovering writing the plot, the setting and the rules to this fantasy world help keep it from going off. You can write your way through fantasy, but that's just the suggestion that I've heard and am passing on. Okay, I have myself a little handy notebook so that way I presenting advice. Always have yourself a little outline so that way if you ever go blank, you can be like, oh right, there it is. All right, okay. Rules of writing. Okay, so this is always my favorite part of this. What are some of the rules of writing people have heard?
Write consistently.
Write consistently.
Kill your darlings.
Kill your darlings. Write drunk, edit sober. If you're stuck on a scene, change the weather. Those are all good writing advice. I would say that those are more suggestions because writing rules tend to funnel in to serve one major goal in writing, and that is to keep your audience reading. And that is why if you get stuck on a scene, you need to change your weather. I'm not sure if I'm going to agree with the write drunk, edit sober one because one thing I'm not going to go into too much detail on is inebriating yourself does not liberate your creativity the way you generally think it does. And so what the rule is you're like, okay, I want people to read this. So, and then you use all these little sub rules because keep your reader reading is a very vague goal. How do you keep them reading? That's what everything else is. And the reason I bring this up is because also sometimes these rules get in the way of writing a good story. So that is why you've also been told there is no rules to writing and to cast them aside. I will say before casting them aside, make sure you are familiar enough with them so that way you are casting them aside with purpose and with a reason that works rather than just hoping for the best. One other thing I have learned more recently is there is what I would say is a second rule to writing, and that is always enjoy what you are writing. This is specifically for people who find themselves writing things in a genre that they hate. It can be writing in genres that grind on your sanity is a quick way to burn yourself out of writing. So writing what you enjoy is always more important. One thing to clarify about this: editing what you enjoy does not require joy. Editing is just something that has to be done. So, and that is always work. And I will say, if you edit something and haven't gotten tired of it, there is a risk. Are you sure you've edited it enough? All right. Do I have any questions before going on to the next point? All right. And then, so, last then, I want to talk a bit about giving and taking feedback because Another important part of writing is, especially in the editing process, is seeing what other people think, and also telling other people what you think about what has been written. As if you have received someone's work and have been asked to edit it, the most important advice that I have heard is be descriptive, not prescriptive. To give an example to explain that, let's say you're writing a vampire romance, and you receive it to review, and you read it, and you're talking like, I didn't quite feel the chemistry between the leads. I didn't feel the chemistry in the romance. That is something that is, you are describing how you felt about what you've read. That cannot be wrong, and that is the importance of feedback. Is because, like, okay, Jane and John are acting like brother and sister, not lovers. I need to go in and work on the romance side. The reason I say not prescriptive is because I receive this, and the feedback I give is like, I think this would work better if instead of a vampire romance, this was a werewolf romance. What is happening here now with that advice is I am taking what I think the work should be rather than what the author is trying to produce, and I am trying to imprint or overwrite that. Now, there are cases where that can be helpful, but really I'd say that sort of advice for people that you know really well, and you're able to say, okay, because I know you so well, I think this would work better than that. But reader interpretation is almost always much more important because it describes and it points to what is off. Now, if you are receiving feedback, the most important thing, and it is obvious, but most important thing to do is to listen. Because if somebody is saying this doesn't work, and you're jumping in and saying, what are you talking about? And then going through the entire thought process and forcing your interpretation on, what you're doing is you're cutting out the work that you need to do sorry, sometimes I get tongue-tied, apologize, but it is y'all's problem. So you cut out the work you need to do to edit this so that the motivation comes through better, or the plot flows better, or that it works better for the reader. Usually this is also why you have multiple people read your work, because if five people read your book and 4 people don't say the romance doesn't work, there's a correlation. If 5 people read your book and only 1 says it doesn't work, like, you should look at it, but also like, there's also some room, it's like, maybe I don't need to do as much as I thought. Do I have any questions? Yes?
How would you say you can balance a lot of characters in a very fast-paced plot?
So I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. How do you balance a multi-main character story where it is moving at the pace of a thriller. So, even thrillers, so first off, you do need to find moments to slow down, because even thrillers have moments where they slow down for, in essence, to make sure the audience can breathe. Because what happens with thrillers that go from 0 to 60 and stay at 60 all the way through is eventually there's a high risk of exhausting the reader if you go for too long. The shorter the story, the more you can get away with it. With multiple cast of characters, like there is still going to be slow moments. Also in thrillers, emphasis on the word moment, because the action is going to pick up again, most often faster than when other stories that don't advise them. And character interactions aren't just conversations. So there can be character interactions in action scenes that aren't based on dialogue. And readers are often pretty good at picking up on how people get along with non-verbal cues in stories. So you can try working some of those in. It won't be as complete as we're going to go through them in slow moments. But if you can sprinkle those in, it will take some of the pressure off of some of those slower moments. Anyone else? Yes.
How do you balance things right? I like to write a lot of really sad emotional moments and a lot of tragic, but I don't want it to be where someone looks at it and just gets depressed and all.
Could you repeat that? How do you balance what moments?
Like angst moments, sad moments.
Angst moments. Okay. How do you balance angst moments? The short answer is the same way you balance. Actually, no, it's not the same way, because angst moments often depend on what comes next, because you can shock anyone in a moment. Six Harry Potter book. Oh, Snape does kill Dumbledore. Sorry, spoilers. It's been 20 years. And that at the time, or so, and that did. The first is the moment needs a chance the reader needs a chance for the moment to breathe. So this is first getting into it being too short. If it doesn't have time to breathe, what it comes across as is shock value. It's like, oh, this bad thing happened. This bad thing's over. Moving on. I think they just tried to shock me. Well, that's it. So that's it. And then on the other end is because tragedy does affect people, but they have to start working their way through it. So what it is the climb out of it is sort of gradual, and there's a change. There's a change, but that change sometimes can be subtle, is what I'm trying to get. It's like, before he was a voracious eater, then his dog died. I mean, you can tell he's still going about and doing his part right, but he's only eating 1 power bar a day. There's definitely something wrong. So that's unexample. Because also what happens is the other end of the spectrum is you get weighed down by melodrama, where it's like, oh, this is just all sad, all the time, and then I'm not just going to keep reading because I know it's just going to continue to be all sad all the time. Now you can do all sad all the time, but those you have to be writing in the genres where people are expecting it because they're signing up for it. And it's like, okay, I want to read a sad book. This is a sad book. You got it. All right, then. Have a little quick. I like to do this little exercise at these events. So I want everyone now to briefly come up with a new character and give them a name. Just you don't have to use them. Don't worry, I don't have y'all long enough to force y'all to write books for me. So just really quick, think of a character, give them a name, and I'm going to ask for a few here in a second. All right. Have anyone? Renata? Silo. Claire. Opal. Daisy. Vivian. Annie. All right. So now this is the reason why I usually go through this demonstration. For your characters, how many of those characters are the same gender that you identify as? Okay, one. You got one honest person. 2. Okay. Next. Oh, this is very good. Of the character names, how many of them have the same number of syllables as your name? 1, 2, 3, 4. And how many of them, if you could count, I understand, how many letters does your character share with that character's name? I'm getting some nods over there. So the reason I go through this is because what I'm trying to get at is when we write fiction, we build upon what we have done, what our own experience, things in our lives, and ourselves. That is not something that you need to run away from. Like, we write what we know. Is the adage. It is okay for parts of ourselves to be in our work. How subtle we want to be is always your choice. That does not give you free license. That is also not free license for plagiarism, because there's a difference between basing what you're writing on things that you know and just copying what someone else has done. But I often, the reason I bring this up is because I often run into people who are worried about originality, and it's like, you don't have to be the absolute most original ever. And this is my favorite example. Luke Skywalker. Who was Luke Skywalker created by? George Lucas. Luke. What's the first letter of Skywalker? S. Luke S. Luke Skywalker is a self-insert. And if George Lucas can get away with it, so can you. Alright, so this is all I have come prepared to talk about, because usually it's sort of similar to how I was talking with y'all before the presentation began. I'm going to take any and all questions now here at the end until we're out of time? How much time do I have? I have 10 minutes. All right. Let's see what y'all questions y'all have, and hopefully I don't lead y'all astray. Yes.
How would you recommend like getting into a character that like is nothing like you? How would you recommend writing a character like that?
How would I recommend getting to a character that is nothing like you? So, what I would recommend is you pick a characteristic of yourself that you can ground yourself in. And then like 2 or 3 others that are totally not you. And the reason I say this is because if you cannot relate to what you're writing at all, there is risk of getting it absolutely wrong. The other way about going about this is always research, because like, I want to read about selfish characters. There are many books out there, which is like how did they do it? What qualities do these characters have? And that's if you don't want to use like a little part of yourself for grounding. Okay. Anyone else? Yes.
What do you do when you write yourself in a corner? Like, how do you get out of that?
So what do you do when you write yourself into a corner? So there is 2 reasons that I've heard this once and it stuck with me. There is 2 reasons that you have written yourself into a corner. The most common reason, 90% of the time, is you're not actually in a corner. You're suffering from writer's block. You have to figure out how you're going to push through that. The second reason, which is like about 10% of the time, is there has been something mistake that you made, usually within the past few pages, that you need to go back and find and change. So that way there's like, this motivation was, this is the motivation. Then this came along. This put me into a corner. So I need to go back here and change that so that way I'm out of the corner. That happened to me once, and I found that it was 2 pages back. Usually if it's much further than that, it probably isn't. There's something else, because otherwise what you're talking about is you've made a huge continuity error for yourself. Are you stretching yours?
Oh, I do have a question.
Okay.
How do you make your characters into a series?
How do you make your
Character into like a novel series?
How do you make your character into a novel series? Okay, so there's two ways to go about it. The first way is episodically, which is most common in mysteries. If I was going to use a movie for an example, I would use the Knives Out movies, because Benoit Blanc is in all those movies, but they're episodic. Those movies are not connected together. Also in those movies, one of the difficulties with a character in a series is people read books for characters to change. So if a character is not changing, they get or facing adversity and inclined to change based on that adversity, they are at risk of coming across as boring. Usually detective novels are an exception, because most detectives, most most episodic detectives either don't have arcs or they have self-contained arcs. And this is where the balancing act gets difficult, because if a character goes through this awesome character arc in book 1, and then they complete their arc, and then so their arc's complete, so they're set for the rest of the book series. Well, why are we still following them? Their book arc's complete. Who has seen the Legend of Korra television series? This is my problem between season 1 and one of my problems between season 1 and season 2 of the Legend of Korra is Korra has this amazing arc in season 1 about accepting yourself as the Avatar, and then in season 2 they repeat it all over again. I think they found their footing in season 3 and 4. So, for the record, I like the Legend of Korra, even though I acknowledge it has problems. And then the other thing is the arc takes too long. It's like we know what you need to do to be a better person. Yet we've known it for two books. Why are you this dense? That happened, and so the solution to that is multiple arcs. Usually the common way. Are you planning to do serialized, I assume, or are you planning to do episodic? For this character's book series, are you planning it to be serialized, like all the books are connected together, or are you planning for it to be episodic?
All the books are connected together.
So what usually happens? What the most common solution to that is there is one arc that happens within the book that is happening. Meanwhile, there is a second arc that is overarching throughout the entire series. So that way, and then what this also avoids boredom, because your characters are still accomplishing things in single books while still being pointed towards the last book where everything gets wrapped up. So, and that's probably one thing to always remember, is that things need to be accomplished in your book, so that way it doesn't just feel like you read connective tissue. Who can think of an MCU movie where they feel like nothing happened because the whole goal of the movie was to advertise the next movie and not be a movie in of itself? This also happens in books. You avoid that by having concrete goals within the books, that are related to your overarching goal or eventually point towards it. Does that help? All right. I think I got the 5-minute warning a couple of minutes ago, so I think I have time for I got 2 minutes, so I got time for maybe one more question. Well, I think I'm going to let the next person get it set up then. I'll be around for a little bit longer, so if you want to ask me questions a little bit before I leave, feel free to find time. I hope y'all all have a good day and enjoy Mississippi Anime Fest.